Title: The Dandelion's Roar. The first chill of true autumn had begun its siege on St. Augustine's Cemetery, the late afternoon sun casting long skeletal shadows from the ancient oaks. Ava, kneeling beside her son's grave, was a study in desolation, a wilting bouquet of dandelions clutched in one hand, a framed photo of Lucas's gap-toothed grin in the other. The official verdict, accidental fall, was a dissonant chord against the steady rhythm of her maternal certainty. Lucas had not simply fallen. A flicker of movement at the periphery of her vision. A gloved hand stark against the grayed stone darted out from behind an adjacent, ostentatious mausoleum. It swiftly placed a small, crudely carved wooden bird, uncannily identical to one Lucas had prized its beak chipped in the same peculiar way, onto the raw earth of his grave. As Ava's breath hitched a small metallic tang, was it paint or blood, seemed to emanate from it. Before she could process the object or the dark sigil crudely burned into its base, the figure melted back into the deepening shadows, a fleeting glimpse of a dark hoodie, the only testament to its presence. Terror colder than the November wind clawed at her. A message, a taunt, or a far more sinister warning. Before the shock could fully register, another figure emerged from the mausoleum's far side, a tall, distinguished man, his silvered hair catching the fading light. With an air of profound, accustomed sorrow, he laid a single perfect white lily not on Lucas's grave, but on the grand marble slab beside it. His movements were precise, almost ritualistic. Then, as if drawn by the intensity of her fear, he turned, and his gaze dark and unreadable met Ava's terrified one. In that supercharged moment, amidst the scent of decaying leaves and the silent scream in her heart, the truth, a specter long chained in the dungeons of her grief, began its inexorable climb. From the deeper shadows of a gnarled oak, Father Samuel, the parish priest, observed this unfolding tableau, his weathered Bible clutched tight. He had seen the hooded figure recognize the swift, practiced malice of the gesture. He made a silent, aborted movement, as if to call out to warn Ava not to touch the bird, but the moment passed. His gaze, deeply troubled, followed the distinguished man's departure, then settled on Ava, who now gingerly reached for the ominous toy. A profound sigh escaped him, lost on the wind. God forgive us all, he murmured his prayer for Ava, for the departed Lucas, and perhaps for himself. Evening descended like a shroud, heavy and absolute, enveloping the yellowed, frost-kissed grass of the small cemetery south of the city. The bare branches of the ancient oaks stood motionless skeletal sentinels, mourning far more than the fading year. Ava, 35, her frame thinner than the cheap cotton of her coat, knelt, her brown hair, once lustrous, falling lank around gaunt shoulders. Her body trembled, a confluence of cold and the fresh wave of unease radiating from the bird, now clutched in her numb fingers. The inscription on Lucas's simple stone, Lucas Alexander, forever loved. 2013-2023, was a brutal epitaph to her shattered world. 3 months. 3 agonizing months since Lucas, her universe, had been extinguished. A tragic accident. The lead investigator, a harried man named Miller, had concluded with rehearsed sympathy. A fall down the linoleum slick stairs of Northwood Preparatory. Ava gently kissed the framed photo, Lucas's angelic smile, a brilliant, defiant mockery of her pain. "Are you cold, my sweet boy?" Her voice, a choked whisper, addressed the silent earth. "Mummy brought your favorites." She placed the dandelions beside the cold marble. The wooden bird now in her pocket felt like a live coal. Beside Lucas's modest grave, the larger, impeccably maintained one of Elliot Nathaniel, an angel who never leaves. 2005-2018, seemed to radiate a complicit silence. Ava had scarcely noticed it before, her grief a thick, insulating fog. Now it felt like a silent co-conspirator. The purr of a luxury sedan idling on the narrow cemetery road was an alien sound in this haven of hushed sorrows. The distinguished man from earlier alighted. Tall, impeccably dressed, his silvering temples the only concession to age. He carried another bouquet of white lilies. Nathaniel Thorne, chairman of Thorne Consolidated, a real estate behemoth, one of the city's most formidable yet intensely private figures. She recognized him from glossy magazine profiles, a man from another galaxy. No one, it seemed, knew he frequented this quiet necropolis, that he too bore the unhealable wound of a parent's grief. Nathaniel stood before his son's grave, his eyes usually sharp enough to dissect a hostile takeover, clouded with an old, familiar sadness. He laid his flowers, closing his eyes briefly, his jaw tight. An involuntary sob, sharp as broken glass, escaped Ava. He turned slowly. Their eyes met again, a prolonged, silent communion of immeasurable loss, and for Ava, a fear that was rapidly crystallizing into something colder, sharper suspicion. Had he sent the bird? Was this sorrow a mask? Ava hastily wiped her tears, a slight, almost defiant nod, her only apology for the intrusion, then turned back to Lucas's grave, her hand instinctively moving to the pocket containing the bird. Nathaniel didn't leave. He observed her, the raw grief etched on her face, the visible poverty that clung to her like the scent of rain. And then, unexpectedly, he bent-plucked a single lily from his own bouquet, and stepping lightly across the narrow strip of grass, placed it beside her dandelions. It was a stark counterpoint to the crude toy. Not a word, not even a flicker of expression. He returned to his car and was gone, leaving Ava more bewildered than comforted. From his vantage point, Father Samuel sighed again, his gaze lingering on the lily. He knew Nathaniel Thorne knew of his immense quiet influence, and he knew of secrets like dark tangled roots that lay beneath the city's polished veneer. The bird, the lily, two offerings, one laced with menace, the other with what pity, or something more complex. That evening, Ava's small rented room, perched precariously above a noisy laundromat, was bathed in the dim flickering light of a single bare bulb. She sat at a scarred wooden table, the sinister bird resting before her. The crudely burned sigil on its base was an interlocked V and S. What did it mean? Her fingers, still trembling, turned the pages of Lucas's battered notebook. A sacred relic filled with his clumsy, endearing drawings of superheroes, fantastical creatures, and scrawled observations that now screamed off the page with chilling prescience. Page 12. Urgent, blocky letters. A lady comes to the house. Dad said not to tell Mom. She has snakies. Ava's heart hammered. She flipped the page paper, crinkling. Dad has a secret. He got mad when I asked about the basement room. It smells funny like sick medicine. Snakies was there too. Lucas's father, Thomas, a charming but feckless man, had vanished weeks after their son's death, offering no explanation, no comfort, only a hastily scribbled note about needing space. If Lucas wasn't by her side, Ava had thought nothing else mattered. But now everything else mattered. Her innocent boy had seen something, feared someone, and perhaps that secret, that fear, had not just followed him to his grave, but had actively pushed him there. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows deepening into predatory shapes. The wind whistling through the ill-fitting window frame carried a mournful, accusatory sigh. The next afternoon, Nathaniel Thorne did not return to the cemetery. Instead, he sought out Father Samuel in the quiet, dusty confines of St. Augustine's rectory. The priest's study was filled with the comforting scent of old books and beeswax polish. Father Nathaniel began, his voice a low rumble. The woman at the cemetery yesterday. Mrs. Ava Everly. Samuel supplied his kind eyes, magnified by thick lenses, regarded Nathaniel with a keen understanding. She lost her son Lucas 3 months ago. A tragedy. Indeed. I saw an object left on his grave. A small wooden bird. Samuel nodded slowly. I saw it placed, by a young man deliberately nondescript. He moved like a whisper. It was not an act of remembrance, Mr. Thorne. It was an act of intimidation. Nathaniel's expression hardened. Does she have family? None that I know of. Thomas, her husband, vanished shortly after Lucas's death. There were whispers. Significant debts, another woman. The priest paused, his gaze becoming distant. Thomas Everly worked for Alonzo Vega, and the woman he was involved with, I believe her name was Miranda, Vega's wife. A stillness fell over Nathaniel. Alonzo Vega. Miranda Vega. Names that resonated with power influence, and in certain circles, a ruthless disregard for anything that stood in their way. He had his own history with that name, a dark buried chapter concerning his late father-in-law, who had tangled disastrously with the elder Vega's criminal enterprises years ago. A history he thought long dormant. Father Nathaniel's voice was very quiet. Was Thomas afraid? Not just of debt collectors, Father Samuel hesitated, his gaze falling to the worn crucifix on his desk. Before he disappeared, Thomas came to me. Not for confession, not truly. He was distraught. He spoke of Lucas seeing things, of a powerful woman who wouldn't hesitate to crush anyone in her way. He mentioned a basement, hushed meetings. He was terrified not of debt, but of something far more malevolent. And you told the police this. A shadow of pain crossed the priest's face. I urged Thomas to. He refused. He said it would be signing his own death warrant and possibly Ava's. He believed Lucas's death was a message to him. And then he was gone. He looked directly at Nathaniel. I have prayed for guidance, Mr. Thorne. Perhaps your presence is an answer. But be warned, these are deep, dangerous waters. Simultaneously, across town, sharp, imperious knocks shattered the fragile quiet of Ava's room. Carlotta Everly, her mother-in-law, a woman whose veins seemed to run with ice water, and judgment barged in her expensive perfume, an assault on the small space. Finally, one would think you'd have the decency to answer promptly, considering your situation. Carlotta's eyes, cold and assessing, swept the cramped room with open disdain. Still wallowing in this hovel. Her gaze snagged on Lucas's photo on a small makeshift altar. Ava stood silent, her hands clenched into fists. If you hadn't been such a neglectful, self-absorbed mother, Lucas would still be alive. Carlotta's lips curled into a sneer. You think those dandelions and your maudlin displays absolve you? Thomas did the right thing leaving. Frankly, your pathetic little investigation into Lucas's accident is stirring up trouble for people who matter. People Thomas respected. Trouble. What kind of trouble? Carlotta Ava's voice was low, trembling with suppressed rage. The kind of trouble that makes powerful people uncomfortable. Carlotta snapped a flicker of something akin to fear in her eyes before she masked it. People like the Vegas. Thomas was always so proud to work for Alonzo. And Miranda, such a charming woman. She even sent flowers after. Well, some things, Ava, are best left undisturbed, for everyone's sake, especially those who can't afford to make enemies. She shot a venomous look at the wooden bird on the table, which Ava hadn't had time to hide. And I see you're collecting trinkets now. Some people send messages you'd be wise to heed. A chill, distinct and predatory traced Ava's spine. Carlotta knew. She knew about Miranda, about the bird, about the Vegas. If you've only come to parrot Thomas's excuses and desecrate my son's memory, then please leave. Ava, said, her voice astonishingly firm. Desecrate, Carlotta scoffed. I speak the truth. You were a millstone around Thomas's neck. He always deserved better. And don't come crying to me when your poking and prodding ends badly for you. Some vipers are best left unprovoked. With a final withering glare, she slammed the door, leaving a lingering cloud of expensive malice. Some vipers are best left unprovoked. The words echoed Carlotta's warning and the V sigil on the bird. Vega. That night, fortified by a desperate courage, Ava returned to Northwood Preparatory. The school, usually bustling, was eerily silent, its Gothic architecture lending it a sinister air. Mrs. Davison, the principal, a woman whose smile never quite reached her eyes, received Ava with cool reluctance. Miss Sophia Lucas's favorite teacher, a young woman with kind, perpetually worried eyes, hovered anxiously in the background. Mrs. Everly, as I've told Detective Miller, this is a tragic closed matter, Mrs. Davison said, her voice clipped. The police reviewed everything. Unfortunately, as fate would have it, our primary camera system covering that stairwell experienced a catastrophic malfunction that entire week. A power surge fried the motherboard. No recordings. A most unfortunate coincidence. Ava's blood ran cold. The entire week, not a single backup. Are there no other cameras, perhaps in the hallways leading to the stairs? Mrs. Davison's eyes narrowed. We are a school, Mrs. Everly, not a fortress. It was a tragic accident. Constantly revisiting it will only prolong your pain. You must let Lucas rest. Defeated Ava turned to leave. As she reached the heavy oak door, Miss Sophia hurried after her, pressing a folded piece of paper into her hand. I don't know if this is anything, Sophia whispered, her eyes darting nervously towards the principal's closed door. But Lucas. He spoke to a woman, a stranger, near the art room. Twice. He drew her, said her perfume was like sleepy flowers, and made him dizzy. He seemed frightened the second time. I told Mrs. Davison. She said it was a child's overactive imagination, that I shouldn't encourage his fantasies. But the woman he described, I saw her here the day before Lucas, and briefly the day of. Ava's fingers closed around the paper, a lifeline. Back in her room, she unfolded it. Sophia's hurried scrawl, tall, elegant, long dark hair, always in white or cream, expensive. Not a teacher, not a parent I knew. Lucas drew her with what he called snake eyes. Said she asked him if his dad kept secrets in the basement. He had a nightmare about her swallowing him whole. Miranda Vega. The puzzle pieces, jagged and blood-soaked, slammed into place. Lucas hadn't just been afraid. He'd been stalked, questioned, perhaps groomed for silence, then eliminated when he proved too inquisitive, too honest. The city morning crept in with pale, reluctant sunlight. Ava, clutching Thomas's only valuable possession, a vintage Swiss watch his grandfather's, entered a dimly lit pawn shop in a rundown part of town. Rent was due. The proprietor, a burly man with eyes like bored oysters, barely glanced at it. $400, and that's generous. As Ava's shoulders sagged, a deep voice cut in. I'll offer $600 for the timepiece, on the condition Mrs. Everly keeps it. Nathaniel Thorne. Impeccable in a charcoal suit, he seemed to radiate an aura of quiet power that dwarfed the dingy shop. Mr. Thorne, Ava said, a shield of weary pride snapping into place. I appreciate the gesture, but I don't require charity. It isn't charity, Mrs. Everly, Nathaniel stated, his gaze unwavering. Consider it an investment in due diligence. I, too, have lost a son. I understand the desolation. And I've learned that sometimes the truth is the only thing worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. He paused. The Vegas, they cast long, dark shadows. Your son may have stumbled into one. His words, devoid of pity, yet rich with understanding, chipped away at her defenses. They left a bird on his grave. She heard herself say the words, tumbling out. With a V on it? Nathaniel's expression didn't change, but a glacial stillness settled in his eyes. He placed a crisp business card on the counter. My private investigator is already looking into certain irregularities surrounding Lucas's autopsy report. Specifically why it was sealed by Esteban Rios Alonso Vega's personal attorney. If you find anything at all, call me. Day or night. We may be able to help each other find the answers we both seek. He departed, leaving Ava staring at the card, a lifeline she was terrified yet desperately tempted to grasp. Meanwhile, at Northwood Preparatory, Principal Davison was beaming, leading a striking woman in a tailored ivory suit onto the gymnasium stage for a special assembly. Miranda Vega, sharp, predatory beauty, her long black hair, a silken fall, crimson lips, curved in a practiced, benevolent smile. Miss Sophia, standing at the back of the hall with a group of students, froze. An icy dread washed over her. As Miranda turned her eyes cold, assessing yet somehow triumphant, swept the crowd. Sophia's heart hammered against her ribs. Snake eyes. She fumbled for her phone, scrolling through the photos she'd surreptitiously taken of Lucas's secret drawings book before it had been misplaced from his desk after the accident. The woman in white, long hair, the unsettling eyes, and Lucas's chillingly prescient caption, "Her eyes want to swallow me." I don't like her whispering. It was Miranda Vega, the new school benefactor. The woman from Lucas's nightmares, the woman he feared, the woman present at the school on the very day Lucas died. Sophia felt sick. This wasn't benevolence. This was a conqueror surveying her domain. That night, the insistent, urgent knocking on Ava's door was not Carlotta. It was Sophia, pale and breathless, clutching a thin manila file and miraculously Lucas's secret drawings notebook itself. I found it, Sophia gasped, stumbling inside, hidden in a box of old art supplies in the forgotten archive room. Mrs. Davison must have stashed it there. Lucas. He drew her repeatedly, wrote about her. And I saw her again today, Ava. At the school, she's their new patron. She spread the drawings on the table. There, in vivid childish crayon, was Miranda, an unnervingly accurate depiction labeled "The Whispering Woman." Beneath it, Lucas's shaky script, "The Whispering Woman asks about the basement. If Dad locks it. Her perfume makes my head fuzzy. Dad gets mad when I say I don't like her. He says she is very important." And another chilling entry beside a drawing of the bird, "Birdie said secrets hurt, like bad poison." Ava stared the room, turning frigid. Her perfume made him dizzy. Sleepy flowers. She murmured, connecting it to Sophia's earlier note. Drugged, Sophia nodded shakily, producing a small Ziploc bag. After Lucas, I cleaned out his desk. I found this, a tiny piece of fabric like from a fancy scarf. It smelled sweet but cloying, like an overpowering lily. I kept it, I don't know why. She showed Ava a photo on her phone, Miranda Vega radiant beside Principal Davison. Miranda Vega, Alonso Vega's wife, Thomas Everly's boss's wife. The floor seemed to tilt. Miranda, Thomas's affair. It wasn't just a tawdry betrayal. It was a doorway into a nightmare that had consumed her son. The dim yellow light cast long dancing shadows as Ava and Sophia huddled over Lucas's notebooks. I hear whispers in the basement sometimes. Not old pipes. Dad got new ones. I saw a light under the door. He keeps it locked now. The whispering woman was there once, with Dad. He kissed her. Mom was not home. If I disappear, Mom, don't believe Dad. Has scared of her too. Sophia wept silently. That last day. Lucas was unsteady, almost dazed. I thought he was ill. Then, they said he fell. Her voice broke. But now, I don't think he just fell, Ava. I think he was pushed or made to fall. Ava gathered the papers. This was Lucas's voice, crying out from beyond the grave. She dialed Nathaniel Thorne. In a sterile, state-of-the-art laboratory within a private hospital, Nathaniel faced Dr. Emilia Ortega, a highly respected forensic pathologist whose independence was legendary. Mr. Thorne, my inquiries confirm your initial suspicion. The autopsy report on Lucas Alexander is unusually redacted for an accidental death of a minor. Key toxicology screens are listed as pending or inconclusive due to sample degradation. Curious, given the freshness of the case at the time. What does your gut tell you? Emilia. Dr. Ortega met his gaze directly. My gut tells me the official cause of death is a carefully constructed narrative. The contusions described are ambiguous. Could be a fall. Could be something else. Access to the original tissue samples and unprocessed tox reports is, however, blocked by a court order obtained by Esteban Rios' counsel for Alonso Vega. Nathaniel's eyes turned to ice. Get me everything that was not officially submitted, anything you might have on preliminary unlogged findings. Discreetly. Dr. Ortega nodded. There was a note from the school nurse, a routine observation. A tiny, almost invisible puncture mark on the boy's neck, dismissed as an insect bite. And she noted his slight disorientation before the fall. Thank you, Emilia. This conversation remains privileged. Outside, Nathaniel called his investigator. Focus on Esteban Rios and any communication with Northwood Preparatory prior to the sealing of that file. And find out everything about Miranda Vega's recent philanthropic activities. Specifically, any large, untraceable donations. The fight for Elliot had been lost to an incurable disease. The fight for Lucas was against a disease of a different kind, human corruption. And Nathaniel found himself armed with a cold, righteous fury he hadn't felt in years. A sharp, authoritative knock. Nathaniel Thorne stood on Ava's doorstep, a grim file in hand. Sophia was still there, having refused to leave Ava alone. Mrs. Everly. Miss Sophia. Nathaniel's voice was devoid of preamble. I am now certain your son's death was not an accident. He laid out printouts, the information on Rios, the sealed autopsy, the school nurse's note about the puncture mark and disorientation, and a financial trace on a sudden anonymous infrastructure grant to Northwood Preparatory from a shell corporation linked to Vega Holdings just days after Lucas's death. They didn't just let him fall. They engineered it. The malfunctioning camera, the sealed report, the quick donation. It's a pattern of active suppression. Ava sank into a chair, the papers trembling. Sophia gasped. The wooden bird, Ava whispered, retrieving it. The sigil. Vias, Vega's serpent, Nathaniel said grimly. An old symbol her father used in his less legitimate enterprises. It's a direct threat from Miranda. It means we're closer than she likes. The next morning, Nathaniel arranged to meet Mateo Diaz, a gaunt, nervous man, who had until recently been the head gardener at the Vegas opulent, secluded mountain villa. They met in a quiet, anonymous cafe. Nathaniel showed him Lucas's photo. Mateo's weathered face visibly paled. See, Lucas, he sometimes came with Senor Thomas and her. He couldn't bring himself to say Miranda's name. A quiet boy. Sad eyes, always watching. Tell me everything, Mateo. For Lucas, Mateo recounted, his voice barely above a whisper, a vicious argument he'd overheard between Miranda and Thomas in a secluded guest house on the estate. Lucas had been nearby, unseen by them, but visible to Mateo. Senora Miranda. She was screaming about loose ends, about the boy knowing too much. Senor Thomas. He looked terrified. Then little Lucas, he stepped out. So small, so brave. He said, my mommy will find out about the boxes in the basement and the shiny powder. I'll tell her you're bad. Senora Miranda. Her face. It was not human. Mateo shivered. 3 days later, I was dismissed. 20 years I worked there. No reason. Just gone. The basement, Mateo. The boxes of the shiny powder. Many times I saw her or Thomas, under her instruction, carry small, heavy, lacquered wooden boxes into the main house's cellar. Sometimes small packets of something white. Very secretive. The air around the cellar vent sometimes smelled chemical. Not cleaning supplies. Sharp. Dangerous. And she had a special workshop down there. Soundproofed. Are you willing to testify to this, Mateo, for Lucas's mother? Tears welled in Mateo's eyes. They have taken much from me. My job, my dignity. If my words can give that boy a voice, I will speak. Even if they try to silence me, too. Ava, empowered by Nathaniel's unwavering resolve, and Sophia's quiet courage, felt a dangerous, unfamiliar strength bloom within her. She remembered Lucas's chatter about Thomas's jumble of keys. One was small, rusty, for Dad's secret workroom in the basement of their old, now empty family home. The house Thomas had insisted they leave almost immediately after Lucas started asking questions about the basement. Thomas had taken most keys, but in a box of his discarded junk, Ava found it. The old house stood as a monument to her shattered life, each room echoing with Lucas's phantom laughter. Heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs, she descended the creaking wooden stairs to the basement. The door, reinforced with a deadbolt Thomas had installed, was locked. The rusty key scraped, resisted, then turned with a groan. Dust motes danced in the weak beam of her phone's flashlight. The room was small, damp, with a packed earth floor and an odd, lingering, metallic sweet scent. In one corner, beneath a deliberately loosened floorboard, Lucas had once shown her, in a drawing labeled Dad's Dragon Hideout, she found it not a dragon, but a cheap prepaid burner phone and a small velvet-lined jeweler's box. The phone's battery was dead. The box contained a single tiny, antique silver whistle shaped like a bird. That evening, as Nathaniel's forensic tech worked on charging the burner phone, Alonzo Vega, unannounced, filled the doorway of Ava's cramped room. His expensive cologne was a suffocating miasma. "What pathetic game are you playing, Ava?" He snarled, his usually smooth face contorted with fury. He stormed in, eyes raking the humble space. "Disturbing Father Samuel, pestering Nathaniel Thorne. Bribing my former staff. I'm finding out who murdered my son." Ava's voice, though quiet, held a core of unyielding steel. Alonzo's smile was a predatory grimace. The boy had an accident. A tragic, unforeseeable accident. Don't make it worse for yourself. Consider that little wooden toy a gentle suggestion to desist. He gestured to the bird on her table. Next time the warning might be more persuasive. Are you threatening me, Alonzo? Or is it Miranda's threat you're delivering? Are you afraid I'll find out you stood by while she terrified him, while she silenced him, or were you complicit? Alonzo lunged, his hand clamping onto her arm like a vice, his face inches from hers. I'm telling you for your own good. Stop, or the consequences will be severe. For you, and for anyone foolish enough to help you. Thorne, that teacher friend of yours. They have vulnerabilities. Ava wrenched her arm free. Lucas already paid the ultimate price, a flicker of something. Unease, guilt. Crossed Alonzo's face before it hardened into a mask of contempt. He threw a thick envelope stuffed with cash onto the table. Take this. Disappear. Start over somewhere far away. It's more than Thomas ever left you with. He spun on his heel and departed, a whirlwind of suppressed panic and impotent rage. Ava didn't touch the money. When Nathaniel arrived grim-faced, she was pale but resolute. He threatened me. He threatened Sophia. He knows Miranda is directly involved. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. The burner phone. It's charging. My investigator also found something Esteban Rios missed. A preliminary tox screen from the school nurse's initial report, not the official autopsy. It was buried deep in the school's server backups, mislabeled. It notes traces of a fast-acting potent sedative, specifically a derivative of scopolamine, devil's breath, in Lucas's preliminary blood sample, enough to cause severe disorientation, hallucinations, and amnesia. The official autopsy lost this sample. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Ava's anger. Sedative puncture mark. Sleepy flowers. Fuzzy head, Lucas's words. They drugged him, Ava Nathaniel said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. To make him compliant, to make him forget, or to make his fall look convincing. Just then the burner phone chimed, fully charged. One audio file. Lucas's small, terrified voice, distorted but unmistakable. No. Please. That sleepy smell again. Hurts my neck. Mummy will know. The boxes. The shiny birdie whistle. Daddy, she's scary. Then Miranda's voice, cold, devoid of inflection, chillingly clear. He's seen too much, Thomas. The ledger's the product. He talks. He has to be silenced. Permanently. Do it, or you'll both regret it. A click. Ava collapsed, a raw, keening sound tearing from her throat, the sound of a soul being ripped apart. The world dissolved. Nathaniel caught her, his arms, a surprisingly strong anchor, as the dam of her tightly controlled grief finally shattered. We have them, Ava, he whispered, his own voice, hoarse with emotion. We have her. We have them. The official investigation was reopened with explosive force, spearheaded by a newly galvanized Detective Miller, now armed with Nathaniel's irrefutable evidence, and driven by a quiet fury at having been duped. Dr. Emilia Ortega, subpoenaed, and unfettered, presented her complete findings to a special grand jury. The bruising pattern on the occipital region of Lucas Alexander's cranium, she stated, her voice resonating in the tense room, her laser pointer highlighting a gruesome projection, is inconsistent with a tumbling fall down stairs. It is indicative of a single forceful blow from a blunt object wielded from adult height. Furthermore, she projected an image of the minuscule puncture mark magnified to chilling clarity. This, combined with the advanced toxicology performed on residual blood traces from his school uniform, traces that were conveniently overlooked, confirms the presence of hyoscine hydrobromide, a potent sedative. Lucas Alexander was drugged, incapacitating him, then struck, and subsequently his body was arranged at the bottom of the stairwell to simulate a fall. A collective gasp rippled through the grand jury. Lucas hadn't just been silenced. He had been meticulously, cruelly executed. The Villaggio Hotel's annual Children's Dreams Charity Gala glittered, a grotesque tableau of oblivious opulence, unaware of the tsunami about to hit. Miranda Vega, regal in ivory silk and diamonds, a modern-day Lucrezia Borgia, swept in radiating icy confidence, until she saw Ava standing near the grand staircase. Not in couture, but in a simple threadbare black coat, her grief a palpable force, her eyes blazing with a righteous fury that eclipsed all the glittering chandeliers. With her stood Nathaniel Thorne Sophia and a visibly trembling Mateo Diaz. Ava Miranda's smile was a brittle rictus, still chasing phantoms. How predictable. You used to call Lucas a sweet, imaginative boy. Miranda Ava's voice, though quiet, carried an electric charge that seemed to silence the surrounding chatter. Why then did he draw you with snake's eyes? Why did your voice on his hidden recording sound like something crawled out from under a rock? He said your perfume made him dizzy, that you whispered dark secrets. What secrets? Miranda laughed, a harsh, discordant sound that grated on the nerves. A child's overactive imagination, a distorted recording from a desperate, grieving mother. You truly think that constitutes evidence? You have nothing. You owe my son his life. Ava's voice rose cracking with pain and fury. Suddenly Mateo Diaz stepped forward, frail but his voice surprisingly strong, holding not a photo but a small, antique lacquered wooden box, distinctively inlaid with mother-of-pearl serpents. "Señora Miranda," he said, his gaze unwavering, "is this not one of the boxes like the ones you and Señor Thomas carried into the cellar? The one little Lucas saw you with, the one that held the shiny powder and your father's legacy?" Miranda stared at the box as if it were a coiled cobra, her face ashen. It was undeniably one of her father's infamous keepsake boxes, rumored to hold the keys to his dark empire. Before she could speak, phones began to chime and buzz across the opulent ballroom. Miss Sophia, in coordination with a determined investigative journalist Nathaniel had quietly cultivated, had just unleashed a coordinated digital bombshell. Lucas's diary entries, the full, unedited audio recording from the burner phone. Dr. Ortega's suppressed findings, Mateo's sworn affidavit, and even stills from grainy old security footage Nathaniel's PI had unearthed from a neighboring property, to the Vega Villa, showing Thomas and Miranda near the cellar entrance on multiple occasions carrying similar boxes. The headlines were stark, brutal: Vega Ires implicated in child's murder-abused drugs, cover-up exposed. A prominent city councilman muttered, his face pale. "Is this the woman sponsoring our new children's hospital wing?" A society doyenne gasped, "My God, my children have attended playdates at her home." Miranda swayed, her composure shattering. "Lies, all lies, slander. My lawyers will—" One of her security detail, a burly man with a telltale bulge under his jacket, lunged towards Mateo, trying to snatch the box. Nathaniel, moving with surprising speed for a man at his age, intercepted him with a perfectly executed block, sending the thug sprawling. Simultaneously, two plainclothes detectives materialized from the crowd. "Miranda Vega." Detective Miller's voice cut through the sudden, stunned silence. "You are under arrest for the murder of Lucas Alexander, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and multiple counts of child endangerment. You have the right to remain silent." As Miranda, stripped of her arrogance, her eyes wide with dawning horror and disbelief, was handcuffed and escorted out through a gauntlet of flashing cameras and horrified whispers, her gaze locked with Ava's. There was no remorse, only the chilling reflection of her own shattered empire. Later, Ava stood in the cool night air, the city lights a distant, indifferent glitter. Nathaniel handed her a pre-release proof of the next day's major newspaper. Front page: Lucas's smiling, gap-toothed face. Headline: "The boy whose whispers became a roar." "Mommy heard you, my brave Lucas." Ava whispered, tears of profound exhaustion and fierce vindication tracing paths down her cheeks. "The whole world heard you." Nathaniel placed a steady, comforting hand on her shoulder. Truth, once a fragile, flickering ember, had erupted into an uncontainable inferno. The fallout was swift and seismic. Esteban Rios, faced with irrefutable evidence of conspiracy, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice, was disbarred and faced a barrage of criminal charges, his career and reputation vaporized. The lacquered box, once pried open by authorities, Mateo had cleverly ensured it couldn't be opened without a specific sequence, which he provided contained more than just incriminating financial ledgers of a vast drug and money laundering network inherited from Miranda's father. Tucked into a false bottom was a tiny, state-of-the-art digital voice recorder. On it, another, even more horrifying recording. Miranda, in a calm, chilling voice, coaching Thomas on how to administer the scopolamine via an aerosolized spray disguised as an asthma inhaler, how to make the blow to the head look like an impact from the fall, and precisely how to stage the scene at the school stairwell. This became the prosecution's smoking gun. This was twist number 1. The full, unadulterated truth, more damning than anyone imagined, found in the heart of the viper's nest. Alonso Vega exposed by the recordings as being fully aware of Miranda's intentions, his pathetic attempts to buy Ava's silence and financial trails, linking him to payments for the malfunctioning school cameras, and the initial suppression of evidence, was charged as an accessory to murder and numerous related felonies. His empire crumbled under the weight of scandal and illicit dealings. Doña Carlotta, watching her son Thomas, found cowering in a flophouse and arrested as a co-conspirator, handcuffed on the evening news, suffered a massive stroke. Her hateful words to Ava echoing in the sterile silence of her opulent, now empty mansion. The trial was a media circus, a harrowing public vivisection of the Vegas gilded corruption. Ava, supported by Nathaniel, Sophia, and Mateo, faced it all with a quiet, steely dignity. Justice, though agonizingly slow, was ultimately inexorable. Miranda Vega was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Alonso received a 25-year sentence. Thomas, in exchange for his full though self-serving testimony against Miranda, received a lesser sentence for manslaughter and obstruction. After the verdicts, an immense hollow exhaustion settled over Ava. The roar had faded. The void Lucas left remained a permanent ache. Nathaniel, whose own quiet grief had found a resonant echo in Ava's fight, understood. One crisp, late autumn morning, he drove her out of the city away from the ghosts and the relentless glare of the media. They stopped before an old weathered wooden gate. Beyond it lay a small, charming white clapboard house with a wraparound porch pots of surprisingly resilient purple asters spilling over the railings and a sturdy wooden swing hanging from the gnarled branches of an ancient apple tree. The air smelled of wood smoke and pine. This was Elliot's sanctuary, Nathaniel said, his voice thick with unshed tears. We bought it when he was 5, a place for him to be wild and free. After he passed, I couldn't bear to come here. I locked it up. I never thought I'd open those doors again. He paused, his gaze distant. My wife, Elliot's mother, she never recovered from his loss. It consumed her. I almost let it consume me too. He turned to Ava. Elliot didn't die in an accident, Ava. He had a rare aggressive leukemia. But the investigation into his illness revealed a possible environmental link to a cluster of toxic waste dumping sites. Sites secretly owned by Miranda Vega's father as part of his empire. I had been investigating those sites peripherally before Elliot even got sick through my own foundation's environmental work. The connection was tentative, never provable enough for criminal charges against the old man, but it haunted me. When I saw your pain learned about Lucas, it felt like a chance, a horrific, unwelcome chance to confront a darkness I had brushed against years ago, a darkness that had perhaps indirectly touched my own life. This was twist number 2, Nathaniel's deeply personal secret connection to the Vega shadow. Ava looked at the house, a haven of peace she hadn't dared to dream of the revelation about Nathaniel's own tragic intersection with the Vegas, adding another layer to their shared battle. Why? Why bring me here, Nathaniel? Because, he said, his gaze gentle but resolute. I believe that a place which once brought solace and joy to a cherished child should continue to offer shelter and hope. This house, Ava, and a modest trust to maintain it and allow you to heal. If you wish it, it's yours. Ava was speechless. Tears not of sorrow, but of overwhelming gratitude, and a fragile, nascent hope welled in her eyes. No one has ever. We have both navigated unimaginable darkness, Nathaniel said, his voice a quiet balm. But if we only inhabit the shadows of our memories, we risk vanishing with those we love. This isn't a debt, Ava, nor charity. It's a testament to Lucas's spirit and yours. A belief that life, however shattered, can find a way to begin anew. She nodded a silent, tearful acceptance. The early days in the White House, as she began to call it, were a quiet revelation. She planted dandelions, hundreds of them, in a sprawling patch at the edge of the woods, a defiant, joyful yellow against the fading green. Nathaniel, visiting on weekends, helped her clear overgrown vegetable beds and repair the old swing. They rarely spoke of the trial of Miranda, of the abyss they had both stared into. In the sun-drenched country kitchen, alongside Elliot's fading pencil marks, measuring his height on a doorframe, Ava found a small, dusty box tucked away in a cupboard. Inside, amongst Elliot's childhood treasures, a perfect robin's egg, a collection of unusually shaped pebbles, a pressed four-leaf clover, was a small handmade card. On it, in a child's careful printing, "To the next person who loves this house, may it keep your secrets safe and your heart happy." From Elliot T. Ava found herself leaving a single wildflower beside Elliot's photo each morning, a silent communion of shared motherhood. Nathaniel saw. He understood. No life replaced another, but shared pain, acknowledged with grace and courage, could slowly, tentatively begin to heal. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the attic, Ava found another box, this one clearly marked, "Lucas, keep sakes." Thomas must have dumped it there in his haste to flee. Inside, beneath drawings and school reports, was a letter in Lucas's painstaking scrawl, sealed in an envelope, addressed to Mommy, for when you need to be brave. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Dear Mommy, if you are reading this, I am maybe lost like in my stories. But don't be sad for too long. You are the bravest mommy in the world. You always make the monsters go away. Even if I'm not there, you have to keep being brave. I love you more than all the stars and dandelions. Your Lucas." This was twist number 3. The emotional anchor, Lucas's unwavering faith in her, reaching out from the past. It wasn't a clue to the crime, but a key to her future. One bright, cold autumn morning, nearly a year later, sunlight streamed into a small, bustling village bakery, newly christened Pan Illas, Bread and Light. Ava, her hair tied back in a cheerful scarf apron, dusted with flour, expertly kneaded a large mound of sourdough, her hands once clenched in unending pain, now shaping nourishment and comfort. Carmen, the gruff but kindly owner of the village's only trattoria, had offered her the unused, dilapidated storefront next door for a pittance. Mateo, now the White House's devoted gardener and groundskeeper, also tended the small herb and flower garden outside Pan Illus, his presence a quiet, reassuring constant. Sophia, who had left Northwood and now taught at the small village school, often stopped by for warm croissants, her laughter bright and easy. She frequently brought her students for story picnics in Ava's blossoming yard. One such afternoon, a new girl in Sophia's class herself, a recent refugee from a troubled city, shyly presented Ava with a crayon drawing. Ava, smiling, surrounded by loaves of golden bread, with a giant benevolent sun beaming down. Beneath it the caption, "Mrs. Ava, the sunshine baker, who makes the sadness go away." Ava's eyes welled. She was not just surviving. She was, in her own quiet way, becoming a beacon. Later that week, Nathaniel, Ava, and Mateo sat on the porch of the White House, sharing chamomile tea and slices of Ava's now famous apple dandelion honey cake. Ava shared her latest idea, a small, beautifully printed booklet featuring anonymized stories from bakery visitors, tales of hardship overcome, of resilience, of new beginnings. To give away with the bread, she set her eyes shining with a gentle, hard-won light. A reminder that no one is alone, that everyone can find their way back to the light. Nathaniel smiled, a genuine, unreserved smile that transformed his usually stern features. He then placed a handsomely designed pamphlet on the rustic wooden table, the Lucas Alexander and Elliot Thorne Children's Voice Fund. Its mission to provide legal aid, trauma therapy, and fierce advocacy for children silenced by abuse, neglect, or systemic corruption. Its headquarters, he said, gesturing around them, will be modest. An office in the village. No gleaming towers. Just a dedicated team and a place where every child's voice is heard, amplified, and believed. Based right here where true healing happens. Ava's hand covered his on the pamphlet, a silent, profound accord. The following spring, on the anniversary of Lucas's reburial in the village churchyard, Ava couldn't bear St. Augustine's anymore. She organized a simple memorial. Father Samuel, who now made occasional trips to the village, officiated. Children from Sophia's class, including the little refugee girl, read poems about courage, about stars, and about the surprising strength of dandelions. Ava spoke her voice clear and strong, reading Lucas's last letter aloud. Not as an elegy of loss, but as a testament to enduring love and the power of a child's pure heart. Afterward, she walked the quiet path to Lucas's new resting place. It lay beneath a young, sturdy oak tree Matteo had transplanted from the White House grounds, an acorn found by Elliot years ago, now a sapling offering shade. The simple headstone bore Lucas's name, his dates, and a new line carved at Ava's request: "Your whispers became a roar. Your light guides us still." She knelt, stroking the sun-warmed stone. No tremors, no visceral wave of grief. Only a profound, quiet peace, an acceptance that coexisted with the ever-present love. "Can you see my Lucas?" she whispered, her voice light as the dandelion seeds that danced on the gentle breeze. "Mommy baked your favorite lemon drizzle cupcakes today." The children at the memorial, they devoured them, and their laughter filled the air. "I told your story, my brave, beautiful boy. And I lived. Not to forget you, but to honor you, to speak for you and for Elliot, and for all the children whose voices need to be heard. Always." A gust of wind carried a shower of white apple blossoms from Elliot's tree, mingling with the dandelion fluff. A soft smile, the first truly untroubled smile in years, touched Ava's lips. Father Samuel, who had discreetly followed her, approached. He had, in the months after the trial, confessed his own burden to Ava and Nathaniel Thomas Everly. In a terrified, rambling confession made to him just days before he vanished, had admitted Miranda was involved in something far beyond an affair. Something terrifying tied to her father's criminal legacy, potentially hidden in their basement. He'd claimed Lucas had accidentally seen documents or substances that Miranda had threatened to eliminate any witness. Thomas was petrified of her believing her capable of anything. Bound by the sanctity of that near confession and fearing for Ava's life against such formidable, ruthless adversaries, if he directly intervened, Father Samuel had felt trapped. He had, however, subtly guided Nathaniel toward key witnesses and information, praying for a divine intervention, or at least a human one strong enough to prevail. "Forgive an old priest his tormented caution, my child," he said now, his voice filled with a deep, resonant warmth. "Your incandescent courage far outshone my fear. He knows, Ava. Lucas knows. And he is so very proud." Ava reached for his weathered hand, her own strong and steady. "There is nothing to forgive, Father. Only to continue healing and to continue fighting for the light." Later that day, back at Pan Illus, the bakery buzzed. Children's laughter mingled with the aroma of baking bread, the quiet hum of parents' conversations, Sophia patiently teaching a group of eager youngsters how to fold intricate origami birds, Matteo recounting local legends to a rapt audience on the sun-dappled patio. Ava, wiping flour from her brow, looked at the vibrant scene, her heart achingly full. No miracle had resurrected the lost boys. But here, amidst flower and sunlight, friendship and shared purpose, an undeniable bridge of healing had been forged from unspeakable darkness to radiant light, from crushing loss to enduring legacy, from terrified silence to a symphony of lives reclaimed and voices amplified. One late afternoon, the summer sun casting long, benevolent shadows, Ava and Nathaniel sat on the old wooden swing under the apple tree at the White House. Elliot's tree. Next to it, a new small, simple brass plaque nestled amongst the wildflowers for Lucas and Elliot. May your light forever shine and your spirits dance free. I used to believe, Nathaniel said, his voice a quiet rumble, that strength meant an impenetrable fortress. Stoicism. Elliot's death, it nearly turned me to stone. Until I witnessed you, Ava. Your raw, unyielding grief, your refusal to be silenced, it was a crucible. You taught me that true strength isn't the absence of pain, but the unflinching courage to walk through it, to feel every shard and still choose life, still choose to fight for what's right, still choose love. Ava leaned her head against the swing's thick rope, the familiar scent of old wood and apples comforting. And you, Nathaniel? She said softly. You showed me I didn't have to walk that path alone. That a sorrow shared is a sorrow halved, and a hope shared is a hope magnified tenfold. You helped me find my roar. The swing moved in a gentle, companionable rhythm. No grand declarations were needed. In the quiet fellowship, in the rustle of leaves, in the distant, joyful sound of children's laughter, drifting up from the village, their unspoken story resonated. A profound testament to the enduring power of truth, the astonishing resilience of the human spirit, and the quiet, persistent kindness that even in the deepest, most desolate darkness can relight the world. The whispers of lost children had indeed become a mighty roar, and in its resonant echo, life irrevocably changed, but rich and beautiful continued.